I've never been the kind of person to believe in ghosts, but what happened at that rental house last summer changed the way I look at empty rooms. And to be honest, I still can't sleep without leaving the hallway light on. My girlfriend and I booked a quiet getaway for her birthday. She found this little rental house upstate, just outside a town called Elk Hollow. Tiny place, population maybe 300. The house was cute, had this rustic charm, wooden floors, lots of light, surrounded by woods. It even had a fireplace and a porch swing. It looked peaceful, and it was cheap. That should have been the first red flag. We got there on a Thursday evening. Sun was low, casting that golden hour glow. The house looked just like the pictures, except maybe a little more worn, paint peeling in spots, lawn kind of unkempt. But it felt private, quiet. My girlfriend was thrilled. I figured we'd cook, watch movies, maybe hike a little. Inside, it was one of those long shotgun layouts, narrow hallway, rooms branching off. Living room up front, kitchen in back, 2 bedrooms on the left side. Everything creaked, not like old house creaky. Like every board under your foot announced itself. We laughed about it at first. She made a joke about ghosts watching us. I told her if a ghost could clean the kitchen, I'd welcome it. That first night was totally normal. We watched a movie, had wine, fell asleep early. It wasn't until the second night that things started getting weird. I woke up around 3 a.m. because I had to use the bathroom. The house was dead quiet. I walked down the hall, half asleep, not really thinking. As I came back toward the bedroom, I noticed the door to the other bedroom, what we were using as a storage space for our bags, was open. I clearly remembered closing it. I stopped. Just stood there for a second, staring into the dark room. Nothing looked out of place. I figured maybe I forgot. I shut the door again, quietly, and went back to bed. The next morning, I mentioned it to my girlfriend. She laughed it off, said I probably bumped it open. I almost let it go, but that night, it happened again. Same time, around 3 a.m., I woke up, not because I had to pee, but because of a noise. It sounded like whispering, like someone was talking softly, just at the edge of hearing. My girlfriend was out cold. I sat up and listened. It stopped, then creaked again, like a floorboard in the hallway. I got up, heart already pounding. The hallway was dark, but moonlight spilled in through the living room window, just enough to make out shapes. The door to the spare room? Wide open. I swear I shut it before bed. I walked toward it slowly, no idea what I was expecting. I stepped into the doorway and flipped the light on. The air in that room was heavy, like humid, but cold at the same time. Our bags were there, nothing moved, but I saw something that made my skin crawl. The closet door inside the room, slightly open, just a few inches. Enough to see that it hadn't been that way earlier. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I backed out of the room, shut the door, and this time I locked it. I climbed back into bed without saying anything. Next morning, we had breakfast outside on the porch, birds chirping, sun shining, but I couldn't shake the unease. I finally told her everything, the whispers, the door, the closet. She got quiet. Then she said, "I had a nightmare last night." I asked what it was. She said she dreamed someone was walking back and forth outside our bedroom, pacing. She said they stopped by the door, and in the dream, she couldn't move, couldn't speak. That was enough for both of us. We agreed to pack up and leave a day early. As we were cleaning up, she asked me to grab her charger from the spare room. I didn't want to go in there. I really didn't, but I told myself it was daylight. Nothing could happen. When I unlocked the door and stepped in, everything looked normal, but the closet, the door was fully open. I swear to you, I never touched it. Inside the closet, against the back wall, someone had etched letters into the wood. Old, scratched up, barely legible. It said, She watches from the closet. Don't turn around. I felt ice in my chest. I grabbed the charger, backed out of the room, and shut the door without looking back. We left within the hour. That night we got a motel near the highway. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that closet, that message. I called the rental owner the next day and asked if they knew anything weird about the house. The guy paused, then just said, "You didn't see anything unusual, did you?" That was enough for me. To this day, I don't know who wrote that message or what they saw, but sometimes when I get up late at night, I catch myself staring down my own hallway, waiting for a door to creak open, and when it does, I don't check anymore. I used to laugh when people talked about sleep paralysis, until it happened to me, alone, in a stranger's house with something watching me from the foot of the bed. And the thing is, I'm still not sure I was actually asleep. Last October, I booked a house in Vermont for a solo writing retreat. I'm a freelance copywriter, and I'd been stuck in a rut, burned out, exhausted, needed quiet. A friend of mine had a cousin with an old farmhouse he rented out for dirt cheap, said it was perfect for a few days of unplugging, and it really was. Big colonial place, white paint, red shutters, set way back from the road with nothing around but woods. I arrived mid-afternoon. The cousin, Matt, gave me the key under a flower pot and said to text him if I needed anything, but he'd be out of town. The inside was dated but cozy. Old furniture, wood-burning stove, patchy Wi-Fi, but it had charm. One thing that struck me was the number of old clocks. I counted at least 9, all different shapes and sizes, none of them working. I thought it was quirky. I even texted a pic to my friend, joking that the house had ghost grandma energy. That first night was fine. I made some pasta, sat by the stove with my laptop, did some outlining. I was feeling better than I had in weeks. But around midnight, I heard something strange. It was this soft tick, tick, tick sound. I assumed it was one of the clocks somehow still running. But when I checked them, every single one was stuck, frozen. I chalked it up to old pipes or settling wood. That's the thing with old houses. They always make noise. I went to bed. Around 3 a.m., I woke up drenched in sweat. Room was ice cold, like my breath was visible cold. I sat up and immediately heard a creaking noise, slow, deliberate, like footsteps moving across the floorboards downstairs. I froze, heart pounding. The house was supposed to be empty. I strained to listen. It stopped. I convinced myself maybe it was an animal on the porch, or a tree branch, but I locked the bedroom door anyway. Next morning, nothing seemed out of place. No footprints outside, no mess, just cold, like a chill that never quite lifted even with the stove running. Still, I pushed through it, tried to work. That night, same thing. Woke up again around 3. Couldn't move. I was completely paralyzed, eyes open but body locked. I've never felt anything like it. It was like being buried alive in your own skin. And then I saw it. Something standing in the doorway. It was tall, almost touching the top of the frame. No features, no face, just a silhouette darker than the room itself. I couldn't blink, couldn't breathe. It didn't move. Just stood there, watching me. Then, slowly, it stepped closer. One step, then another. Then it stopped, right at the edge of the bed. I felt the mattress dip, like something was kneeling on it. I wanted to scream, wanted to run, but all I could do was cry. And then I blacked out. I woke up just after sunrise. My whole body ached. The door was still locked. Nothing in the room looked disturbed, but the pillow beside me? It had an indent, like someone had been lying there. I told myself it was a dream, sleep paralysis, stress. I even looked it up, found Reddit threads, articles, all saying the same thing. It's not real, but that doesn't explain what happened the next night. I almost didn't go to bed. I stayed downstairs past 2 a.m. Lights on, music playing softly from my laptop. Around 2:45, I heard the ticking again, soft, rhythmic, but louder this time. Not one clock, all the clocks, every single one ticking, all at once. I stood in the center of the living room, heart hammering, surrounded by this chorus of ticking. It felt like the air itself was watching me. I reached for my phone to text Matt. Battery, 1%. I hadn't used it all day. The second the clock on the wall hit 3 a.m., they all stopped. Just stopped. Total silence. Then the upstairs floor creaked. That was it. I grabbed my stuff and ran out to the car. Slept in the back seat, freezing, keys in hand. In the morning, I went back in, packed everything, didn't even bother cleaning up. I left a note for Matt and drove straight home. A week later, he texted me, said his aunt, who used to live there, had been obsessed with time, collected clocks, refused to let anyone throw them away. She died in the house, in the upstairs bedroom. At 3 a.m., I didn't reply, didn't ask anything else. But sometimes, when I'm up late working, I still hear ticking, and every now and then I'll wake up with that same feeling. Like someone's in the room, like someone's watching the time. I used to work for a moving company. You'd think the creepiest things I'd run into would be bug-infested basements or hoarder houses, but the only job that ever made me consider quitting didn't involve anything alive. This happened in 2021 in a tiny town called Newcastle, Pennsylvania. We had a job moving furniture out of a century-old house that was being prepped for sale. The owner had passed, no family left, so the bank was offloading the contents. My coworker Rick and I were sent in to do the job, supposed to be a one-day thing. But by lunchtime, we both knew something wasn't right. The house looked abandoned from the outside. Overgrown bushes, shuttered windows, mailbox stuffed with yellowed envelopes. But inside, it was like someone had just stepped out to grab groceries. Everything was weirdly clean, furniture still covered in plastic, dishes still stacked neatly in the sink. But no power. The lights didn't work. The fridge was empty. It felt like time had just paused in there. Rick kept saying the place smelled off, not rotten or moldy, more like perfume. Old lady perfume, thick and sweet, even though there was no one around and no open bottles. I thought he was just being dramatic, until we made it upstairs. There were 3 bedrooms, 2 were normal. Old dressers, faded wallpaper, beds stripped bare. The 3rd door was shut. When we opened it, the air changed. Immediately. It was like walking into a freezer. I mean, our breath fogged up. In the center of the room was a hospital bed. Metal rails, yellowed sheets, old medical equipment pushed against the wall. A dusty oxygen tank, IV stand. But no sign of anyone living there recently. On the nightstand was a photo in a cracked frame, an older woman, smiling, sitting in that same bed. I noticed her eyes were kind of off, like they weren't focused on the camera. Rick grabbed the dresser first. We were barely halfway through when he froze, said he heard someone whisper his name. I laughed, told him it was just the wind through the vents, but he wasn't smiling. He looked at me and said, "Dude, it came from the closet. There was a door on the far wall. It wasn't a normal closet door, no handle, just a push latch. Rick walked over and pressed it open. Inside was just empty space, some blankets, a rocking chair, and that smell. Stronger now, like someone had just sprayed perfume and shut the door behind them. I told Rick to leave it and help me finish the job. He agreed, but kept glancing at the closet like something was going to crawl out. As we carried stuff downstairs, things got weirder. Doors we had left open were now closed. A mug that had been on the counter was gone. The front door slowly creaked shut behind us, even though there was no wind. Then, in the middle of carrying out the bed frame, Rick dropped his end and just stood there. "What?" I asked. He pointed back at the upstairs window. I looked. The bedroom with the hospital bed? There was someone standing in the window, just barely behind the curtain, a silhouette. Rick said, "Tell me that's not a reflection." I couldn't speak. We watched for a solid 30 seconds. No movement, no change, just this black shape behind the curtain, like it was staring right at us. We finished the job, didn't speak the rest of the afternoon, just loaded everything and drove back to the office. The boss asked why we looked so pale. Rick told him the house gave us the creeps. That was it. A few days later, Rick quit. Said he didn't want to do residential clears anymore. He looked genuinely spooked. Last I heard, that house still hasn't sold. Every time I drive past that part of town, I think about that upstairs window, that cold air, the whisper, and I wonder, if we had opened that closet all the way, what else we would have seen. I know how it sounds, but I swear to you, I never believed in ghosts until I moved into that apartment. It was a mid-rise building in Queens. I had just landed a job in Manhattan and needed something affordable but safe. 6C was older, sure, but it had charm. Crown molding, hardwood floors, even a little fire escape I could sit on with a drink. The landlord was an older guy named Manny, super hands-off, barely spoke. He gave me the keys, told me to text if the heater ever cut out, and that was that. The first night I moved in, I barely noticed anything odd. Maybe a few creaks here and there, but it was an old building. I figured it came with the territory. But the second night, I started hearing the knocks. They started at exactly 3:12 a.m. 3 soft knocks, coming from the other side of my bedroom wall, the wall that connected to the empty unit next door. 6B was vacant. Manny told me that himself. I laid there, frozen. The knocks didn't repeat. Just those 3. I told myself maybe it was the pipes. The next night, same time, same number of knocks. I checked my phone, 3:12 a.m. exactly, and they were louder this time, almost deliberate. I texted Manny asking if someone had moved into 6B. He replied 5 minutes later, still vacant. Hasn't been shown in weeks. I didn't sleep much that night. The third night, things got worse. I was in bed, scrolling my phone when the temperature in the room suddenly dropped. I'm talking freezing. I checked the heater. It was on full blast, but my breath was fogging up in the air. I heard the same 3 knocks again, this time from the closet door. Not the wall, the closet. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding, and walked over. I didn't want to open it, but I had to. I flung the door open, and nothing. Just coats and my laundry basket. I didn't even bother sleeping that night. I stayed up on my fire escape until the sun came up. By the next evening, I was already thinking of breaking the lease. But curiosity got the better of me. I went downstairs and talked to the super, this old woman named Doreen. I casually asked about the history of 6C. She gave me this weird look and said, "You in 6C? Thought they stopped renting that unit out." I told her Manny had offered it to me directly. Her face went pale. She hesitated, then told me this story in a low whisper about a woman named Linda who lived in my unit 10 years ago. She was in her 40s, lived alone, kept to herself. One day, her neighbors noticed a smell. Cops were called. They found her in the closet, dead. Apparently, she'd overdosed, but what disturbed people wasn't how she died. It was what she left behind. Dozens of journals, all with the same phrase written over and over. "The woman in the wall watches me sleep." I could barely breathe. I asked if I could see the journals. Doreen just shook her head. "No one ever kept them. Landlord tossed all that stuff." That night, I slept with every light on. I thought maybe I was psyching myself out, letting the story get to me, until the closet door opened on its own. It creaked, slowly, like someone pushing it with their fingertip, and then I saw her. Just for a second, a pale woman, long dark hair, eyes wide, standing in the corner of the closet. And then, gone. I screamed. I actually ran into the hallway in nothing but a t-shirt and socks. A neighbor poked her head out, startled. When I told her what I saw, she nodded. not surprised. "Yeah," she said, "that's Linda." I moved out 2 days later, didn't even wait for the lease to end. I left the furniture behind, slept on a friend's couch for a month, and ate the security deposit. I couldn't stay there. To this day, I still wake up around 3:12 a.m. for no reason, and every time I swear I hear it. 3 knocks. I used to work for a rural property inspection company out in Nebraska. My job was simple: drive out to abandoned or foreclosed homes, snap photos, assess damage, and make sure nobody was squatting there. Most of it was boring, honestly. Long drives, dusty roads, same rusted mailboxes and overgrown lawns. But one assignment still haunts me to this day. It was late October. I had to check out a property that had been vacant for years. Old farmhouse, supposedly inherited by someone in Florida who never came to claim it. It was in the middle of nowhere, 30 minutes off the highway, down this winding dirt road surrounded by dead cornfields. I arrived just before dusk. The sky had that soft orange hue, and the wind was sharp enough to sting. I pulled up to the property. The house was in rough shape, collapsing porch, boarded windows, the kind of place you swear you've seen in a horror movie. I stepped out, phone in hand, to take photos, and noticed something odd right away. There was a path, bare, like something had been walked over again and again, leading from the back porch into the field. Straight out into the corn. I thought it might be a deer trail or something, but it looked too clean, too straight. I took my exterior shots and debated whether to enter the house. I had a key that the office mailed me, but the door was slightly open. That was the first red flag. I announced myself. Standard protocol. "Hello, property inspection, just here to take photos." No answer. I stepped in cautiously. It was colder inside than out. Dust coated everything. Furniture still there, couches, a rocking chair, even a plate of fake plastic fruit on the table. But there were signs someone had been inside. A boot print on the floor, a candle that looked recently burned. I snapped my pics and turned to leave when I heard it. A girl humming, very soft, very faint, coming from the upstairs hallway. I froze. I called out again. "Hello, is someone here?" My voice cracked mid-sentence. The humming stopped. Then I heard creaking, footsteps, not fast or aggressive, just slow, deliberate. I didn't stick around to find out more. I backed out the front door, heart pounding, and practically ran back to my car. That's when I saw her. Standing in the middle of the field, right where that bare path led. A girl, wearing a light dress, white or maybe pale blue. Hard to tell in the light. Long dark hair, just standing there, perfectly still. I blinked. She was gone. Just gone. I got in my car and started the engine, hands shaking. I looked back one more time. Still nothing. That night, I emailed my supervisor. Told him the house had signs of break-in, possibly occupied. He told me to return the next morning with someone else. So I did. I brought my buddy Luke, big guy, used to be military. He agreed to tag along. When we arrived the next morning, that path into the field was still there. Even clearer now. We checked the house together. This time, the door was shut. Locked. No boot prints. The candle was gone. But the air? Still freezing. Luke didn't see anything out of place, thought I was overreacting. Until we found the attic. There was no ladder, but you could see the hatch in the ceiling. Luke boosted me up and I popped it open. That's when the smell hit me. Rot. Moldavian something wet. I climbed up and saw it, a child's mattress. Torn, yellowed. Surrounding it were dozens of small shoes, all girls' shoes. And drawn on the wall in what looked like charcoal was a crude picture. A girl standing in a field, eyes blacked out. I got down fast and told Luke we were leaving. No arguments. Back at the car, I looked out one last time across that field, and there she was again. Closer now. I snapped a photo as fast as I could and floored it out of there. When I checked my phone later, nothing. Just an empty field. No girl, no shadow, not even a blur. I never went back to that property. Told my boss I quit that route. Luke agreed. Said he didn't see her, but the attic shook him. Said something felt wrong in the bones. 3 months later, that house caught fire. No one knows how. Completely gutted. The field path? Still there. To this day, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night to humming. Software delicate, and my window fogged from the outside.
This happened in 2019, when I was in my last year of college. I was living alone for the first time in a studio apartment just off campus in a quiet part of town. It was an old converted building, used to be a hotel or something in the 40s, so the rooms were kind of quirky. My unit was small but cozy. One big room, tiny kitchenette, and a bathroom tucked away in the back with one of those thick wooden doors that never shut right. It was around midterms when the weird stuff started happening. The first thing I noticed was the bathroom door. It would slowly creak open on its own, just an inch or two, always while I was asleep or out. I figured it was bad framing or the warped floor. Old buildings do that. But then things started escalating. I came home one day to find the bathroom light on. I was sure I'd turned it off that morning. I always did. I had a thing about saving power. I brushed it off. Maybe I was tired, distracted. That night I turned it off again, triple-checked it before bed. Around 2:40 a.m. I woke up. The light was back on. I sat up in bed, heart already racing. The door was cracked open just enough that I could see the light spilling through. I stayed frozen for what felt like forever, just watching it. I finally got up, walked over, turned off the switch, and shut the door tight. It clicked closed. I barely slept the rest of the night. Next day I bought one of those little magnetic child locks you stick at the top of doors. If it opened again, I'd know something was off. That night, it didn't just open. It swung all the way out. The magnetic lock was still intact, but the door was open, wide, and I swear to you, I heard breathing, software ragged, just beyond the threshold. I didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, staring at the empty bathroom. Nothing there. Or so I thought. I slammed it shut and dragged my desk chair in front of it, sat back on my bed, mind racing. I tried to rationalize it, drafts, faulty latch, maybe the pressure from the heater. But then, the next morning, I found something that made my stomach drop. On the bathroom mirror, drawn in the fogged-up glass, even though no one had showered, was a handprint, child-sized. I stared at it for 10 minutes. I didn't even know what to do. I wiped it clean and told myself it had to be mine. Somehow, maybe from earlier, even though I hadn't touched the mirror, I started keeping the bathroom door closed with a chair in front of it every night, and for a couple days, things calmed down. Until I had a friend over, Lisa. She was crashing on my futon for a few nights while apartment hunting. That night, I woke up to her screaming. I jumped out of bed and flipped on the light. She was sitting bolt upright, pointing at the bathroom door. "The girl," she said. "There was a girl in the mirror." I didn't tell her everything, just said I'd had a few weird nights. She stayed up with me the rest of that night, both of us too scared to sleep. The next day, Lisa moved out. I couldn't blame her. That night, I did something stupid. I left the bathroom door open. I wanted to see it. I don't know why, I just needed to know. I set my phone on the windowsill across the room, hit record. I climbed into bed, lights off, heart pounding. Around 3:11 a.m., I woke up with this overwhelming sense of pressure, like someone was sitting on my chest. I couldn't move, and I heard her, whimpering, from the bathroom, not loud, almost scared. My body finally jerked free. I leapt out of bed and hit the light. No one there. Door open, light off. I rushed to check my phone. The video had stopped recording on its own at 3:08 a.m. right before I woke up. I watched the footage, nothing, until the last few seconds.
A tiny shape, barely visible, stepped out of the doorway. Just a shadow, a girl, pale legs, long tangled hair, and she was facing the camera. I deleted the video immediately. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stay there. I broke the lease the next day, told the landlord it was mold, paid the penalty, moved in with my brother. A few months later, out of morbid curiosity, I looked up the building's history. That apartment used to be a janitor's closet, until 1987, when the owner's daughter was found dead in there, locked from the inside. The report said she had been missing for 3 days before they found her. They ruled it an accident. No one ever explained how she got locked inside, or why the mirror had the words, "Let me out," scratched into the glass. They remodeled, turned it into a studio. I've never gone back, never looked up the address again, but every now and then, I wake up at 3:11 a.m. and I swear I hear her, whimpering, right behind the door. You ever experienced something so disturbing? It felt like the universe was targeting you? These aren't coincidences, they're warnings, and the people who lived through them are still haunted by what happened. I've never believed in signs or fate or whatever. I'm not superstitious. Or at least, I wasn't, until something happened to me last summer that I still can't explain. I'm not saying it was supernatural, but it was too specific, too precise to just be a coincidence. I had just moved to Nashville from Minneapolis. I got a remote job in marketing and wanted a change of scenery. Found a cheap studio apartment in East Nashville. Nothing special. It was one of those older places, creaky floors, weirdly shaped bathroom, noisy pipes. But I liked it. It felt private. I didn't know anyone in the city, which I actually liked. Fresh start, no drama, no expectations. The only neighbor I really interacted with was this older guy named Russ who lived in the unit next to mine. He was probably in his 60s. Always wore this faded Titans hoodie and cargo shorts no matter the weather. He was quiet, kind of awkward, but polite. We'd nod or say a few words when passing each other. I'd see him smoking on his balcony late at night sometimes, just staring out at nothing. He seemed lonely, honestly. Anyway, a few weeks after I moved in, weird stuff started happening. Small stuff at first. My phone alarm would go off at random times in the night, even though I hadn't set it. Once it rang at exactly 4:13 a.m., which I figured was just a glitch. Another time I found my kitchen cabinet open when I was sure I'd closed it. I kept brushing it off, told myself I was tired, maybe I bumped something, maybe I forgot. That kind of thing, but then it escalated. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. No name, no voicemail. I didn't answer. Then I got a text from the same number. It said, "Do you lock your window at night?" No other message, just that. I felt this weird tightness in my chest, like someone had dropped a weight on me. I responded with, "Who is this?" but got nothing back. I started checking every lock in the apartment. I even pushed my dresser in front of the window that night. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I found something on my balcony. It was a feather, a single gray feather, just laying in the middle of the concrete. Nothing around it, no birds in sight. I know that doesn't sound scary, but it was just so deliberate, like it had been placed there. I was too freaked out to eat breakfast. I took the feather inside and threw it in the trash. Then I went to check my window and noticed something else. The dresser I had shoved in front of it had moved. Only slightly, but I knew I hadn't touched it. That's when I remembered something. Ruski. He had the same layout as me. His unit mirrored mine, which meant if someone wanted to cross over from one balcony to the next, they probably could. I told myself I was being paranoid, but something in my gut was screaming. That night, I stayed up later than usual, just sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the window. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard something, a soft metallic rattle. I killed the lights and crouched near the corner of the curtain, peeking through just an inch. And I swear to God, I saw a shadow move across Russ's balcony. It didn't walk, it crawled, like someone trying to stay low, trying not to be seen. I backed away from the curtain so fast I knocked over my laundry basket. The sound must have startled them because I heard the shuffle of retreating steps. Then silence. I called the cops, told them I thought someone had been on my balcony. They came, looked around, didn't see anything. I asked if they could talk to Russ. One of the officers did a quick knock on his door, but he didn't answer. They said to call again if anything else happened and left. The next day, I didn't see Russ. No lights on in his apartment. Nothing. That night, I barely slept. I kept all the lights on, sat on my couch with a baseball bat and my phone at 100% battery. Nothing happened. But the day after that, something did. I had gone out to grab groceries. I wasn't gone more than an hour. When I got back, I noticed my door was unlocked. Now here's the thing. I'm obsessive about locking up. I check it 3 times before leaving. There's no way I forgot. I stepped inside, heart pounding, and immediately knew something was off. There was this smell, like dirt and sweat. Not strong, just faint enough to notice. I walked through the apartment slowly. Nothing looked stolen, nothing obvious. But when I got to my bedroom, I saw it. Another feather. This one was on my pillow. Same size, same color. Perfectly centered. I backed out of the room, locked myself in the bathroom, and called 911 again. They came quickly, checked the place top to bottom. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, nothing. They said maybe I'd dropped the feather there without realizing. I wanted to scream. I told them about Russ, about the crawling shadow, about the messages. They said they'd look into it. That night, I slept at a friend's place across town, just to clear my head. The next morning, I got a call. It was the property manager. He said, "Hey, did you hear about Russ?" I said no. He told me Russ was dead. They found him that morning, slumped over in a lawn chair on his balcony. No signs of struggle, no drugs or alcohol, just dead, like he'd stopped existing in the middle of a thought. But here's where it gets insane. They think he'd been dead for at least 3 days. I said, "No, that can't be right. I saw him 2 nights ago." But they were sure. The ME said there was no way he'd been alive recently, which means whoever I saw on his balcony wasn't him. And remember those feathers? When they cleaned out Russ's apartment, they found dozens of them stuffed into drawers, piled behind the fridge, taped to the back of his bathroom mirror. No one could explain it. The cops eventually stopped following up. There was no case to pursue, no forced entry, no evidence. But I moved out the next week. To this day, I can't figure it out. Was Russ trying to warn me? Was someone using his apartment to get into mine? Or was this something worse, something that used him? Either way, I don't think it was random. It was too calculated, too quiet, too creepy to be a coincidence. As terrifying as that was, the next one will make you question how many things around you are happening on purpose, and how many times you've been pulled into something much darker without realizing it. I don't really tell people about this story anymore, mostly because when I do, they just kind of look at me like I'm either making it up or exaggerating. But I swear to you, this happened exactly how I'm about to describe it. And the worst part is, I'll never know why it happened. Only that it couldn't have been random. This was back in 2019. I was living in a small town in Arizona, working as a nighttime janitor at a local rec center. It was a weird schedule, but I liked it. No traffic, no bosses hovering over my shoulder, no crowds. Just me, my headphones, and a big empty building. I'd show up around 10 p.m., clean until 4 or 5 in the morning, then head home and crash. The place itself was your standard community center. Gym, pool, basketball courts, daycare room, even a small office wing with cubicles. All single level, kind of spread out. Nothing fancy, and at night it got dead quiet. I mean, zero noise. Sometimes I'd forget there was even a world outside those walls. I had a pretty solid routine: start in the pool area, then work my way across to the locker rooms, hit the main lobby, and finish near the offices before I clocked out. Nothing ever really changed until one night. It did. It started with the clocks. I was in the gym area, wiping down the bleachers, when I glanced at the wall clock and noticed it said 1:12 a.m. I remember that because I had just checked my phone a few minutes earlier, and it said 12:41. So I double-checked my phone again, and yep, 12:43. Not even close. Figured maybe the batteries were dying. I made a mental note to report it. But then, maybe 20 minutes later, I walked into the daycare room, and that clock said 1:12 too. I checked a third one above the front desk in the lobby. 1:12, exactly the same time, on 3 different analog clocks. I'll be honest, that gave me a weird feeling. Not scary, just off. Like something was trying to get my attention. I even laughed it off in my head, like, okay, weird Twilight Zone moment, but whatever. Then I got to the office wing. Now this part of the building was always my least favorite. The lights were automatic, but sometimes they'd take forever to kick on. You'd walk halfway into the hall before they flickered to life. Always made the shadows feel a little too heavy, but I had my headphones in, music going, so I wasn't too bothered, until I saw the woman. She was standing at the end of the hallway, just outside the last office. Her back was to me, dark hair, shoulder length, wearing what looked like a white or cream-colored dress. Just standing there, not moving. I stopped walking, pulled out one of my earbuds. I was about to say something. Maybe she was lost or needed help, but then the lights flickered, and she was gone, like blinked out. 1 second there, the next gone. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Just stood there staring down the hallway like an idiot. Finally, I walked to the end, heart pounding, and peeked into the office she had been in front of. Empty, dark, no signs of anyone having been there. I told myself I imagined it. Maybe the lights glitched and my eyes played a trick on me. The white wall caught a shadow, something like that, but deep down I knew what I saw, and then it got worse. I started hearing footsteps, not constant, just every now and then, soft ones, like bare feet on tile. I'd be in the locker room scrubbing sinks and hear something in the hallway. When I looked, no one was there. Twice I found doors open that I know I had closed earlier in the night. Once I found one of the office chairs turned to face the wall, even though I hadn't gone into that room at all. And always, the clock said 1:12, even when my phone said otherwise. The final straw happened 2 nights later. I had gotten into the habit of skipping the office wing completely. I didn't want to deal with it, but that night I was behind on my tasks and I had to do a quick trash sweep before leaving. So I grabbed the bin, walked down the hallway, this time humming out loud to make myself feel a little less uneasy. When I reached the last office, I pushed open the door and stopped cold. The woman was there, sitting in the desk chair, facing the wall. Same white dress, same dark hair. She didn't move, didn't acknowledge me. I couldn't see her face, just the back of her head. Her posture was stiff, tense, almost like she was listening. My first thought was that someone was messing with me, a coworker playing some elaborate prank. I said, "Hey, you're not supposed to be back here." Nothing. Then she tilted her head, just slightly, not turning to look, just enough to register that she heard me. And then, from behind me, I heard it, a whisper, right in my ear. I couldn't even tell you what it said. It wasn't words, just a sound, like a breath made of static. I turned and ran.
Didn't stop to grab anything, didn't check the other rooms. I sprinted out of that building, jumped in my car and drove home doing 90. I called off the next shift, told them I was sick. Didn't go back for almost a week. When I finally returned, everything looked normal. Clocks were reset, offices were clean, but I noticed one thing I hadn't seen before. In the break room, there was a cork board with old photos pinned to it. Employee events, kids' classes, random flyers. One photo in the bottom corner caught my eye. A group of staff members standing in front of the daycare room, smiling, holding up signs for a fundraising event. And in the back row, near the edge of the frame, was the woman. Same dress, same hair, not smiling, not holding a sign, just standing there. I asked my supervisor who she was. She squinted at the photo and said, "Oh, that's Liz. She worked here years ago. She passed away. I think it was an accident or something." She didn't say much more than that. Just changed the subject. I've worked there on and off since then, mostly daytime shifts. But I'll never forget that week, the clocks, the footsteps, that name on the photo, and how everything, all of it, always pointed to one thing. 112. Every night. Too many times to be coincidence. A woman in white, clocks stuck at the exact same time, and a whisper no one else could hear. But what happens when the signs aren't just signs? They're counting down to something. I've only told a few people about this, and every time I do, they ask the same question. Why didn't you go to the police? And the truth is, I tried. I really did. But it's hard to explain something like this when you don't even understand it yourself, and all the evidence just disappears the moment you try to prove it. This started about 5 years ago when I was living in Baltimore. I was 25, working overnight stock at a big box store. My hours were brutal, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., but I liked the solitude. Most of the team kept to themselves. We'd all do our sections and leave each other alone unless we needed help unloading a pallet or something. One night I was in the back of the store, stocking kitchen supplies, when I noticed something strange on one of the boxes. It was just a shipping label, but someone had scribbled something over the barcode in pen. It said, 7 more. I didn't think much of it, figured it was part of the product code or a weird note from the warehouse. But I saw it again 2 nights later, this time on a different box in a totally different aisle. Same handwriting. 6 more. That gave me pause. It felt deliberate now, like a countdown. I showed my coworker Marcus, and he laughed it off, said maybe someone was screwing with me, or I had grabbed the same box twice and didn't realize. But the handwriting wasn't printed. It was written in thick black marker, uneven like it had been rushed. A few nights later, I was in the break room grabbing a soda when I opened the fridge and saw something taped to the inside of the door. A scrap of paper. It just said, 5 more. No name. No explanation. Now I was genuinely weirded out. I asked around, but no one else had seen it. I took a picture of the note and threw it away. I figured maybe it was some creepy inside joke or one of the guys hazing a new hire. I tried to shrug it off, but then it started following me home. I lived in a studio apartment about 15 minutes from the store. Quiet complex, mostly older tenants. I'd usually get home around 6:30 in the morning and go straight to bed. One day, I got up in the afternoon and went to grab my mail and found an envelope sitting right on top of my doormat. No stamp, no name. Inside was another note. 4 more. That's when I knew something was really wrong. I called the front office and asked if anyone had been by my apartment. Maintenance, package drop, anything. They said no. I checked with neighbors. No one saw anyone near my place. I still don't know how they got in the building. That night, I went into work early and checked every break room, every locker, every aisle I'd worked the previous shift. Nothing. I started keeping my head down. Worked fast, ate lunch in my car. I didn't want to give whoever it was the satisfaction of seeing me paranoid, but it didn't matter. The next morning, I opened my glove compartment and found a sticky note on top of my insurance papers.
3 more. I hadn't even told anyone about the other notes. I hadn't posted online, hadn't texted anything. I was terrified. I went straight to the police station and showed them the photos I had taken. They listened, wrote a report, and told me to keep an eye out. That was it. No cameras in the parking lot, no physical threats, no leads. Just vague creepiness. When I got home later that day, I walked into my apartment and stopped cold. On my kitchen counter, just sitting there in plain view, was another piece of paper. 2 more. Nothing else in the apartment had been touched, no signs of forced entry, nothing missing. Just that note. I slept with a knife under my pillow that night. I pushed my dresser against the door. Every sound made me jump, but nothing happened. The next night at work, I was walking past the seasonal aisle when I saw a piece of paper sticking out from behind a stack of fake pumpkins. I don't even know why I pulled it out, but I did. 1 more. That was it. I was done. I quit that night. Didn't even finish my shift. I told my manager I was having a personal emergency, packed up my stuff and left, but the story doesn't end there. A week later, I was still staying at a friend's place. I hadn't been back to my apartment since. I was thinking about breaking my lease entirely. I didn't feel safe. I kept thinking maybe I'd find a job in another state. Start over. That night, around 11 p.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. They left a voicemail. It was just a whisper, but I swear to God it said 0. That was the last message I ever got. No more notes, no calls, no sightings, nothing. It all just stopped. I waited. Days turned into weeks. I moved into a new apartment across town under a new lease. Got a different job, changed my routine. Whoever it was, whatever they wanted, they didn't follow. But to this day, I wonder, what would have happened if I had gotten 1 more note? What was I counting down to? What was supposed to happen at 0? Because I think, whatever it wasn't random.